this is a 98-inch TV. It's got to go up here, which means involving Niall and my dad. That TV is the TCL C805K. It's 98 inches. It's the biggest TV I've ever got my hands on, and it's got some very impressive specs, which I'll explain in a moment. But before that, the biggest challenge is getting it upstairs into the studio. I don't think we can get it round those stairs because surely that isn't going to work. So instead, on Niall's recommendations, we're going to try and get it up here. What could go wrong? This is the biggest TV any of us have ever handled, but with the box, it was even bigger. So it wasn't long before we hit a snag. Okay, first problem, the box is huge and really heavy itself. So we think we are gonna unbox it down here and then move it up there naked. The TV naked, not us. The TV had actually been sitting downstairs in the studio for over a month, purely because we couldn't work out how to get it upstairs. The good news is TCL have obviously thought about this, and it wasn't long before we found a bunch of carry handles built into the box, which made moving it away from the wall and getting the TV out just a little bit easier. Guys, how heavy is this TV?
Very heavy.
Yeah. Slightly less heavy out of the box, but now we've got to get it either up there or round here. Niall's just said, well, I wonder if it will go up the stairs. Let's see. In the effort of continually throwing Niall under the bus with this, he's now had the idea of using this as a template, which is roughly the same size as the TV. So, do you want to give it a go, Niall?
No.
No.
But if you twist that, yeah.
Only there's a lot of crunching when you were doing that, Niall. That's just a bit of cardboard. It's not a 98-inch TV. Should we give it a go?
Let's give it a go.
Pray for us. I should point out at this stage that Niall is basically a proper athlete and Dad and I definitely aren't, so we were very lucky to have him on hand, but despite this it was still incredibly tricky getting that TV up those stairs. The biggest issue was the pivot moment, which if you've seen Friends you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, and the fact that I somehow managed to trap my right leg under the TV at one point. Thankfully some impressive gymnastics by Niall came to my rescue and somehow we got it up the rest of those stairs. So I told them I was going to get the camera. I might just leave them here.
Oh, watch your fingers now. Well done.
Done. I'm not putting this on. That's never going anywhere else ever again apart from here. Now, it needs to go over here, which should be easier. This is going to be a temporary location for the TCL TV. We've got much bigger plans for it, if you'll excuse the pun. Remember to hit the subscribe button not to miss those future videos. But more good news, because once you've got your massive 98-inch TV into the room it's intended for, the installation process is super easy. If you're placing it on a surface, there's just 2 brackets which are screwed on, very straightforward. And yes, if you're wondering, you can wall mount it as well. I think we'll leave that for a later date, to be honest. So for us, all that remained was the satisfying peel of that huge protective wrap, and we were done. And yes, ready for a rest. There it is, in situ, the 98-inch TCL TV, and it's tomorrow now, so everything you just saw happened yesterday. I slept very, very well, and this framing does not do this set justice. It's just utterly huge. A 98-inch TV, if you're thinking of buying one, is as big, as difficult to move around, and as heavy as you expect, so you have to be ready for this. You saw how difficult that was yesterday with Niall and my dad and myself getting it up into this room. None of that was put on. There were several moments where I nearly lost a leg at one point and all sorts of things happened, but we got it up here, and that's the main thing, so just bear that in mind. But let's go through the specs of the TCL, what's it called? I keep getting these names wrong. C805K. It's a QLED mini LED panel, it's 4K, it's got HDR premium, it's got 1500 nits of brightness, 144Hz motion clarity pro refresh rate, it's multi-HDR format, so it includes Dolby Vision IQ, and HDR10+. It's got Game Master Pro 2.0, HDMI 2.1, Dolby Atmos, Google TV, hands-free Google Assistant, it works with Alexa, it's also got Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney+, AirPlay 2, HomeKit, it, loads of different apps and compatibilities, and you can get it in 50, 55, 65, 75, 85 and 98 inches. The price? Well, it was £3,299 in the UK. You can get it now for about 2,800 quid, which is still a lot of money, but this is a very big TV. There is another option, which I'll come on to later on, but yeah, about £3,000, let's say, for this size TV with all of those specs, which are quite impressive. But let's dig into the picture and the sound. Just a very quick note, I shot this entire video in 24 frames a second by mistake. I normally shoot TV reviews in 60 frames per second, so you can see the high refresh rate and all that sort of stuff. I only realized that at the end of unboxing this and bringing it upstairs, and trust me, there's no way I was going to repeat that process backwards and then do it again just to shoot it in 60 frames per second and not get told off by people who noticed that. So just bear that in mind. If you want a really in-depth review, this isn't the one, because I don't do that. But what I can tell you is what it's like to have a TV of that size and with those specs in your room, and it's undeniably impressive. In terms of common problems, I couldn't spot any backlight bleed that bothered me. There was no terrible banding on there. The corners, this always bothers me with TVs. Quite often you'll get inconsistent backlighting on all four corners. That's not present on this TV at all, and in fact the backlighting overall is very, very consistent. And remember, this does have Dolby Vision and Dolby Vision IQ, which means you don't have to faff around with the picture settings if you're using Apple TV or any source that has Dolby Vision content. You just whack that stuff on and it looks amazing. Standard definition and HD content on this TV is good as well. You do have to bear in mind that this is a 98-inch TV, so unless you're the right distance away from it, which I'll come on to in a moment, it's never going to look amazing in terms of non-4K HDR content because it's such a big panel, so it's having to blow everything up and I guess fill in some of the missing pixels, but it still looked pretty good to my eye. The Dolby stuff, the Dolby Vision stuff, and the proper 4K HDR content, when you view that on this TV, even up a little bit too close, it looks amazing. But it is about that viewing distance. This room is quite big. It's much bigger than my living room at home. Basically, this TV would never fit in our living room. But it would look utterly ridiculous. And as tempting as it might be to get a massive TV like this and think, oh, it would be like having an IMAX screen in my front room. To a degree, that's true. But the closer you get, the more unsettling it is. It's just way, way too big. Whereas if I stand about halfway from the TV into this room, it looks about right. It's still very, very big, but that's where you see the quality of the image. It's where you realise that you need a huge house to make this work, and personally I don't have that size house. When it comes to gaming, this is a stunning TV for that because, again, look at it, it's massive, and you can get a little bit closer with the gaming side of things. I did find that when I moved my little beanbag close to this TV while I was playing FC24 and Call of Duty and Forza, I was really immersed in the action, which again means I just don't want to leave this room at all. But it's, yeah, for gaming, that the 144 hertz refresh rate is amazing. You can't see that on this video, obviously, but trust me, it's very, very quick. It's got this Game Mode Pro, which comes on automatically. I'm someone who just these days wants to plug stuff into my TV and have it work. And the great thing about TVs like the C805K is that you can do that. So whether it's Dolby Vision content or the Game Mode Pro, which sets up the TV ideally for gaming, you don't have to do anything. It's plug, play, done. The built-in Onkyo sound system is great, to be honest. I mean, I don't think anyone who buys this TV is going to rely on that, really. They're going to have sound bars or built-in, plumbed-in 5.1, 7.1 surround systems. But if you need to rely on the built-in speakers temporarily, or even full-time, who knows? To be honest, in here, I'll probably just use those. They're fine. They do a really good job. The bass is pretty good. It goes fairly low. It's fairly rich. And for movies and stuff like that, it's definitely there. It's definitely present, as is the Dolby Atmos. So it's got Atmos built into this, which you can actually hear. There's been some TVs that I've tested where you can't really hear the Atmos effect. On this one, it's very immersive. You can hear stuff behind you, you can hear stuff above you. They've done a good job of the speakers. It's also running Google TV, and it's the first experience I've had of Google TV, and it's a very good decision by TCL. I'm still not keen on a lot of the operating systems that TV brands use. They're just clunky and slow and hard to find stuff. The decision to put Google TV TV into this was inspired because immediately it works really well. It's very easy to get around. It's very fast, which is a key thing. And it has access to all the streaming services, all the apps that you can probably think of. It's a joy to use this TV to the point where you don't really need an Apple TV. I'm a big proponent of the Apple TV, but if you don't have one and you fancy saving yourself however much the Apple TV is these days, I can't remember, I'll put it down there. If you fancy saving that amount, just use Google TV in the C805K. It's brilliant. Okay, let's move on to my conclusion about this massive TV. The C805K is very big, it's very heavy, it's very difficult to get into any kind of building. I didn't show you this, but we had to stop the traffic outside the studio to get this in when it was boxed. You do not mess around with a 98-inch TV. This is a serious thing to commit to, trust me. So the first kind of conclusion that I've drawn on this is the fact that you have to be the right kind of person to buy this TV. Firstly, you need the budget because this isn't a cheap TV. And secondly, as mentioned earlier, you need the right sized room. I'll show you some more footage of this space in here. This, I think, illustrates how big your living room or your, wherever you're intending on putting this TV, this illustrates how big that space needs to be. And trust me, my living room is not this big. So if your room is this big and you're the sort of person who really does like their TV specs, because this is one of the more expensive 98-inch TCL TVs, you're going to really appreciate this. It will last you for a long, long time, trust me, and you will be absolutely overjoyed by the picture quality. If, however, you have a room this size, or maybe not this big, but you just want a massive TV, there is another option from TCL. So this is the C805K, but they do have the P745K, which you can get for about 1,800 quid. That is 98 inch as well, and it still has it. It's 4K HDR. It's still got the Dolby Vision stuff built into it. It's a very well spec'd TV for a lot less than this one. And again, unless you pixel peep and you know everything about TVs, that one makes a lot of sense if you have the space. Now this one will stay in this studio, and that does mean that I've got to wrench myself out of the studio every day to go and see my family, and equally try and get some work done in here because all of that stuff to one side, all of the size concerns and you need a big room, all that sort of stuff. It's just a really cool, massive TV. However, if this is too big for you and you fancy a TV that's a bit more realistically sized, keep watching for a link to another TV review, which I think you'll be able to relate to. I definitely can.